How do you think about campaign finance reform and the pernicious nature of the lobbying industrial complex and the impact that that has on elected official incentives? Like, how can we get past K Street? How can we figure out how to responsibly channel money into politics without creating those types of incentives? Because short of serious campaign finance reform, like how do we, like, to use your phrase, like, move forward?
This is one of the great issues. And I talk in the book about how now we have a vetocracy where for big companies, you'll spend millions of dollars, not just trying to get something done, but making sure something you don't like doesn't happen. And that's like this negative power now in the system. Like you can't get anything done, but you can keep anything from getting done.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know, like you.
And that's fueled by this revolving door between K Street and the Fortune 500 C-suites and elected office.
Yes. There was an Onion headline from a long time ago, an article. You can look it up. It's that like the American people hire a lobbyist to fight for their interests in Washington. And I just thought it was really funny. Yeah. There's like a guy in a suit in the picture being like, I represent the American people. And then I thought about it, I was like, that actually would make a lot of sense. And what's funny is years later after that headline, I started a lobbying organization, Humanity Forward, that right now is doing that very thing. It's just like in Washington, D.C., and it's lobbying for cash relief and data rights.
We want you to actually do your job.
Oh, we want you to do your job for the American people and not like an interest group that has oodles and oodles of money.
Right.
So if that sounds good to people, you know, you can check out Humanity Forward, and it's literally like the people's lobbyist.
Right.
Inspired by The Onion. So it's a major problem. We spend billions of dollars, like a vortex of $6 billion plus influencing policy, just trying to keep things fixed in place. So how do you cut through that? And the customary political answer that you'll hear is we should overturn Citizens United, try and get dark money out of politics. I agree it was a bad ruling, but it would take a constitutional amendment to overturn that ruling. And the fact is money has had its way in politics since even before that ruling and would find its way back in various ways. So the best actual solution, which I think could be achievable and passable, is to put 100 democracy dollars into the hands of every American that you can just give to any political candidate you want. This has been done at a local level, and it has empowered people to all of a sudden think of themselves as investors in candidates. The number of Americans, the percentage of Americans who actually donate to political candidates right now is very low. It's something like 10%. So if you do that, you're in like the most 10%, the most engaged and activated 10% of American voters. But if you had 100 free dollars, like what would that percentage look like? You know, all of a sudden, I think you'd see it. You wouldn't get to 100% ever because some people would be like, oh, it's another scam somehow. But if you even got to 20 or 25%, that would be enough to counterbalance all of the corporate money in politics. And if you're an individual candidate and you got 10,000 people to support you, that's $1 million. That's enough to run a credible congressional campaign in a lot of the country.
I like that idea. And short of Citizens United getting, overturned, isn't there a way to create a moratorium on an elected official's ability to then transition into some kind of lobbying job or, being on the board of directors of a company that donated a tremendous amount of money to them? Like, can't we at least create space between the tenure that they hold in office and whatever they choose to do when they retire from that office?
The revolving door is so deep, where a majority of legislators will go work for a lobbyist after their term in office, and the dynamic is very pervasive and pernicious. And it goes like this. I'm working on Capitol Hill, and I have friends who resemble this. I make a certain amount of money. Their lobbyists come around, and they make more money than me. Their firms pay people 6 times more. And so your very natural impulse is go easy on them and then get a job with them afterwards. So if you were to genuinely want to put a stop to this, you need to do something dramatic, which I'd be all for. And in some ways, people would resist this because it seems like you're, somehow rewarding legislators at a higher level, but we should pay them a lot more. And then we should throw money at them as soon as they leave office, as long as they aren't a lobbyist, essentially. Just say, hey, if you go work for a nonprofit or an academic institution that's not engaged in lobbying, we'll give you an extra $100,000 a year for the rest of your life, whatever it takes. But that is the only realistic countermeasure that might work. Members of Congress get paid $174,000 a year. It's a lot of money by national standards, but a lot of people listening to this are like, oh, right. like, you know, like I could see why then they turn around and make $800,000 as a lobbyist as soon as they can.
Yeah.